day and a warm welcome to everyone around the world and for joining today's session on Agile Question Time. I have with me very good friends, and everyone here is also a very good friend. And today's session is all about asking questions on agility. Joining me today, I have Cyril Awero, an Agile XPC and an Agile coach. Three things you should remember about Cyril are: he's an executive director at Trusted Advisors, an agile consultant for over 2 years, and he loves jazz. Also, I've got Carlos, who's joining us today. Carlos is a safe program consultant, an agile technical coach. And three things you should remember about Carlos are: he's a senior technical consultant at Lean Icon Technology, a net, and loves African jazz tunes. As we go along this session, please feel free to ask your questions, and Carlos will be helping in moderating the entire session. I will now hand over to Carlos to take us through such an exciting session. Thank you. Carlos, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, William.
Yes, go for it, Cyril.
Yeah, okay. So I will start off by saying thank you very much, William, Carlos, and the team for inviting me to participate in this session. It's the first time I'm participating in this, so I'm looking forward to the conversation, and hopefully there'll be more sessions that I'll be participating in the future around business agility. So yeah, I think Carlos was just reiterating on the question about the challenges that I have seen typically with agile transformations in organizations. So I would say that there's probably five key areas. The first one is leadership, and the second is team's understanding of what it means to be an agile organization, organizational culture, and organizational agility. And then the fifth one being the framework adoption. How do we, what steps do we take to, to adopt the SAFE framework? But for now, for this session, I think we're going to just focus on leadership. It's a very broad topic, but we have this 30-minute period, so we're going to start with discussing leadership. I think William might contribute on the framework adoption conversation as well. And as I said, we'll have more sessions coming up, so we'll be talking about the other areas in the future. So leadership, really, this is around agile leadership. And the challenges here that a lot of organizations face is leading by example. So what do we mean by leading by example? Agile leaders are authentic, right? They actually true to themselves, and they are very they act with honesty, integrity, and transparency. I think a famous quote from Maya Angelou is probably the one that goes, I don't remember the exact wording, but Maya talks about people remembering what is said, but the main thing that people remember is how they were made to feel. So feeling is very, very important. So leading with authenticity is very key. This is how leaders connect with their teams. And then we have emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, we see this coming up. Leaders expect to be able to be aware of themselves and of others from an emotional perspective. And this is how they're able to forge very good relationships, social circles and things like that. Lifelong learning is also very, very important. It's important that as leaders, we are continuously learning and adapting to new thinking so that we can apply this in our own environments, and we expect the same from our teams as well. And then probably the other key area is growing others. As leaders, we want to ensure that our teams are bringing their best self to work, and we want to help them in that journey of having them developed, to a high enough standard so that they can perform at their best. And that part of that is training, of course. And leaders also want to lead. They want to be seen to be leading the change. So leaders have, ideally want to have inspiration and passion about where the organization is going. So they really draw their teams into where the organization is going, to ensure that, as a collective, all teams are coming together to make this, bring this vision into reality. And then, of course, change leadership, being comfortable with change is quite important. This is an area that a lot of leaders, or generally people, have challenges with, is changing themselves. And making sure that there's we have psychological safety. So psychological safety is really around fostering environments that encourage people to be open about their ideas or feelings, even thinkings, and this kind of transparency helps as well with innovation. Teams bringing ideas on board. So those are the sort of the main areas there from a leadership perspective. We can talk about leadership for hours, as I say, but this is just a very kind of high summary. So this is a conversation between myself and William in a way. So William, what are your thoughts on the framework adoption part? What would you say could be done to help ensure that organizations' agile transformation is a success?
Thank you, Cyril. What an extensive overview on what leadership is. And to add to the 5 that you've talked about, a few that I also put down were first the framework adoption, organizations going through the implementation process, and third will be they having the right resource commitment. And fourthly, which I think impacts most organization, is the change management process, which includes mindset. And you heavily talked about the mindset area, which leaders can definitely make a lot of impact on. So to help with all of this, I would push it back to framework adoption. In terms of framework adoption, providing the sufficient training that people will need. Having been within the PMI, worked in a director role to support the PMI, one thing we notice is when organizations are going through transformation, the focus is on the roles that exist within the organization, but not a focus on training most people on the journey to help make a massive impact. So a positive way will be framework adoption through training all the various parts of the organization to come on the journey and help improve and adopt a new way of thinking. Carlos, have you got any questions?
Yeah, that was quite an extensive list that you have given, but I would want to give a further question. So, looking at all of these, from your experience, which of the following do you think should be tackled maybe first?
Cyril, do you want to go?
Yes, I'm happy to go with that. I believe that the first area that needs to be tackled would be the leadership side. Because the interesting part about the leadership side is that they are the ones that have the clout. They have the autonomy to make decisions that would help to drive all the necessary changes that need to happen within the organization. So it's quite beneficial to have them engaged right at the beginning. And I think William mentioned about the framework adoption, and a key part of that is implementation roadmap, from SAFE. And right at the beginning, with the roadmap, we actually start to train our leaders, managers and decision makers to ensure that they understand exactly what we're embarking on. So I would suggest, Carlos, that I think the leadership engagement would be the first area to tackle. Yeah.
I would agree with Cyril, because Cyril and I worked on a transformation initiative, and together we had to train the leaders before having a chat with the team.
Very true. Yeah.
And if the leaders didn't buy into it, I'm sure we wouldn't have gotten far.
Yeah.
And wouldn't have been able to create a portfolio, create a transformation team, create a group of people that would champion the whole process. And having trained those leaders, getting feedback, getting their buy-in, seeing them rethink about the whole process, change their mindset. For us, I think in that particular training, Cyril and I really found it worthwhile, and personally, it was a light bulb moment having those leaders changing their mindset as per the previous meetings we've had with them, trying to tell them the way forward, but having the training really pushed the entire transformation process.
Yeah, that's very good evidence of that. Another point as well, very quickly, Carlos, is that when we mentioned leadership, by the way, leadership is not just about our senior management, the executives, etc. Right? Leadership is really around behaviors across the organization. So anyone in the organization is a leader, by their own right. So I think that's worth remembering, that leadership behaviors are expected to be displayed by everyone in an organization and not just by the senior execs. Yeah, worth mentioning. Okay.
And so the other participants, if you have any question, you could just post it in the chat.
Yes, I've got it.
Eric?
Okay, yeah, all right.
Oh, go on. Oh, do you want to go first? Oh, okay. Quick one. No, so forgive me. Oh, sorry. Yeah. I wonder how do you go about even getting leadership to listen in the first place? to even want to talk.
That's a very good question, Eric. Yeah. You want to take that, William?
Yeah, let me. So for the gig that I worked on with Cyril, from the onset, when they said they wanted to go down the agile transformation road, so throughout all our discussions, we kept on pushing. Look, is this a discussion that's been had at strategic level? So that was the first question we asked. Is this something that has been thought about in the strategy? And when they came back and said, oh, yes, as part of our strategy, we want to move on to new ways of working. And that was our number one, let's say, our number one checkpoint. If it's been had at strategic level and all the leadership have been involved in that conversation, then asking them to come to a training wasn't going to be hard, but really it was hard, because with the executive directors trying to get 5 hours of their time to sit in a meeting was extremely hard. Everyone had to cancel a holiday, cancel a meeting, cancel a management meeting. So finally, when we had them, it was in between a lunch time and a bit extended period after 2. So when we got them for the first time to sit in for 3 hours, then they were able to rethink about the whole process and said, okay, having come into this session, we found it worthwhile. We are going to buy in and support and be involved in future training. Cyril, anything to add? Hello, Cyril. Okay. So I would say first, involving leaders in all the conversations at the onset when you start the transformation, and offering them the training would really set the foundation for future discussions with leadership.
Okay, good. Once we wait for Cyril, there's another question in the chat. Or UM is ready. Okay, let's take UM.
Yeah. My question is, in talking about leadership at the organizational level, the organizational culture and all of that, what, in terms of transitioning from the current state to the state that the organization wants to evolve into, what transition plan should be put in place to help organizations who evolve? And number two question is, bringing in contract staff to organization, how does that help in terms of sustainability? Because most of the time you have a lot of contract staff coming into organizations, and how, in terms of the organizational culture, how is that sustained?
Okay, thank you, Uwe. I think this was a topic we discussed heavily last week on the program I was on, transition, and moving the organization from its current state to its target state requires that we have a group buy-in. First, we said, okay, leadership, we've talked about that extensively. But if we want to transition them from the current state to the target state, how do we sustain that process and ensure that everyone involved in the process knows where we are going? So within the company that, or within some of the companies that I've provided services for, we've had a team either known as the Center of Excellence or the portfolio team, and they've been focused at helping everyone involved in the transition process. It's a big change process that requires that the people on that journey are well taken care of. And if the transition is not well managed or proper care is not taken care of for all the people involved, it would fall apart because people will adopt new habits. People would have to learn new ways of working when we get to the target state. And we could make a list of improvement activities that people would go through to get to the target state. And if they get there, how do we sustain them? So in addition to the transition, we asked about sustainability. We can transition the people. What about sustaining them when they get there? So transition, heavily important. Let's identify a team of people that will get people from A to B. Secondly, with regards to contract staff, in today's current workforce, there'll be contract staff, there'll be permanent staff. It's having that mindset that contract staff bring in experiences from different organizations that will add value to the entire process. So if you have contract staff, they bring in so much experience that you need to tap into them before they move on into their next role. So you can form a team around them that will learn from those contract staff. So when they move on, you don't have a big gap or you don't experience that gap. And those were discussions we also had with a company up in Cardiff when we had those discussions with them. Initially, leaders were all not in favor of contract staff, or they had various views on contract staff, but making sure that you can form a good clout around them to tap into their knowledge before they move on would help the organization. Knowing that contract staff might be very wary of sharing all the good things they know, but trying to tap into them will help the team. So have you got anything to add to transition? And
yeah, sorry, yes, apologies. My network failed me for a few minutes there. So I think I was just responding to Eric's question in particular. Which was a very, very good question, because one of the top challenges that organizations face is changing leaders' mindsets, right? A lot of leaders have been working in a particular way for a long time, decades, and it takes a lot of effort to try and change their thinking around these new ways of working. But the strategy here is that it's very, very important to develop very good persuasive skills, right? Because you want to get into the head of the person that you're trying to persuade, understand from their perspective, what are they looking to gain out of this whole transition change process, right? And then you latch along that, to bring them in. So I would say, try and develop good relationships with the leaders, understand what's behind, what's their vested interest, and then connect the two, what you're bringing with their vested interest, and it'll make it much easier to sell. Yeah. So I hope that helps.
And asked the question about contract stuff, which I know you and I are always contract stuff when we go into organizations. How do contract staff provide the necessary knowledge when they join, and how do you sustain that knowledge when they go? Have you got any thoughts on that?
Absolutely, yeah. So with that, it's quite useful to have something around that embedded into the contract, right? Yeah. Or at least the ways of working in terms of how the contracts are working with the teams within the organization. So there could be periodical reviews of what knowledge the contractors have shared with the team, for instance, right? So try and build that into the delivery or the value that the contractors are bringing. So if you formalize it somewhat, then it becomes an expectation that all parties are aware of, and the contractors do pass on their knowledge as expected. So I think formalizing it helps. But if you just leave it to the owners or the contractors, it might be a bit of a challenge. So yeah.
Thank you. I think there's one more question in the chat that I would put across. How do leaders learn a new mindset?
Okay. Unless you want to take this one, William, I'm happy to say a few words on this one.
Okay.
I'll start, and then you can follow. So this is where your skills as a coach come handy, right? Because now you're delving into psychology, if you like. I myself have developed an interest in psychology in the past, few years or so, because I've recognized how important it is for us as coaches. Having an understanding of psychology helps. So here now you're trying to get into the mind of the person that you're trying to persuade. You have to be able to understand where they're coming from. So you want to understand their stories, their journey, as much as possible about them. And it's only when you have that understanding about them can you then use that knowledge to try and persuade them to come to your way of thinking. So that's just very summary. That's how I would recommend you approach that to getting. But that's a very good question, because that's the most challenging areas for change. Yes, William. So maybe you can add some more words.
I think a very strong question asked by Shelley Thompson, and all the questions being asked are very insightful and profound. So, I'll say personally, how have I seen that? If you want to sit in a leadership role, then you must know that your role as a leader cannot be static. You must observe change around you. So as a leader, you must have a roadmap to adapting to what's happening within your environment. Static leaders do not make great impact. Leaders who can scan around, understand the strategy, understand the market, understand what's happening within their business, and move quickly. Or I dare not use the word agile, but I'll say, and can be agile in their thinking, would really help organizations. And if you're a leader with a very static mindset and you can adopt and make big changes, you would impact your organization negatively. So as leaders, personally, you should be on that personal pursuit to develop new mindset, support the organization, and help them whenever there's a need for big change or transformation to make the organization a better place.
Yeah, no, that's very spot on, William. And that goes to what SAFE recommends. It's leaders moving from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. Right?
Cyril, you did say something earlier on. You mentioned something about persuasive skills. Yeah.
Yes.
Now, and you mentioned about psychology. Yeah. Which is very important. Now, I'm a copywriter as well. So now in copywriting, one of the courses I took in education was called psychology. Now in copywriting, you go into the mindset of the people you want to persuade to buy an article or to buy an item.
Yeah.
Now, if you are trying to talk to a leader in an organization to change their mindset, and you have to be persuasive, there's what we call perceived value. So my question now is perceived value versus the real benefit, because sometimes perceived value could make someone to buy in as opposed to the real value because of the psychological, because you've delved into the person's psychology.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So you're saying here that the perceived value could possibly be of a selfish motive, for example, right? As opposed to the overall value that could be, of benefits to the whole organization. Is that an example of what you're?
It could be. It could be perceived value. If you have a difficult stakeholder, a difficult leader and you know this person is a person of great influence, you need him on board, and you want to try everything to get him on board. Sometimes you could use perceived value.
Yes. Oh, okay. You're saying that use that as a way of hooking them in.
Yeah. It could be. Yeah. What's your
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's an interesting perspective. Firstly, there needs to be an alignment. I think William might mention this before. There ought to be an alignment across the whole leadership on what value means to all of us. I think this is a good starting point, right? In fact, it probably goes beyond the leadership. It's the external stakeholders, shareholders. Yeah. So our perception of what value means to us wants to be the same across the board. And this way, when we are having the conversation with any leader, we are talking about the same set of values that we're aiming for. Does that help?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Because if they are not in agreement with those values, then we have an issue within the leadership. Because there ought to be this alignment. And when that doesn't exist, then that's a different issue. But if they do understand what the value is, then we are saying that we think that in order for us to get to this place, these are the steps that we want to take. In order to gain, achieve this value, these are the steps that we want to take.
But that's where the problem is, isn't it? In any organization that wants to change.
Yeah, absolutely, Human.
That's the biggest problem, getting them to see that value in unison.
Yes, spot on.
Okay. Should I add to this?
Yes.
So
the last then
okay. So in terms of value, in SAFE's principle number 10, it talks about organizing around value. And the value could be tangible or intangible to organizations. And if you are the leader, you need to be able to align the value and get all the other directors on board with where you're going. So I'm always a big fan of roadmaps. And if you could get everyone aligned with what the tangible value and the intangible value are for the organization. We could talk about all the intangible values, but for most organizations, the tangible values, just being able to sustain the organization and make sure that every worker has been paid, is also very important in business. So selling products and making an income should be important to all organizations as they look after their customers. So we should organize around value, whether tangible or intangible, and get everyone on board on that journey. And as a leader, you can't afford to be in an organization that falls apart because you weren't able to lead people to support the new ways of working and to transition into a new world. So let's always think about what is value, whether tangible or intangible, and let's organize around the value.
But it's a very fair question, Uwan. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for this session. I think personally, I like the interactions that have taken place. Cyril and William, thank you for giving more clarifications and sharing your experiences with us. And to all the participants that joined us, I hope you join us in the subsequent sessions on Monday and Tuesdays. And on Friday, we On Friday, we have data modeling with Carlos. He will be demonstrating how to create a database using the Microsoft SQL Server. We'll be having future sessions starting from the 8th of October. We'll be having Agile coaching sessions with Shirley also. So kindly take note of that. We'll be sharing the information in the groups. Enjoy the rest of your day. See you on Friday. Bye.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone. Thank you, Eric
everyone.
and UM,
Thank
for your
you.
questions. And
Yes,
thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you,
And we
everybody.
look forward to seeing you in the coming sessions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, Carlos.
Hi.
Yeah, I would like you not to log off for a few minutes, okay?
Okay.
And let me get Cyril back on.
Okay.
Hi, Gerald. I hope you're keeping well. Cyril, please, can you log back on?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. Hope you are keeping well as well.
Yeah, I'm very well. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'll get in touch.
All right. Okay.
All right.
Hello, William.
Yeah, Cyril, can you log on back, please? Yes, please. Hi, Emmanuel.
Oh, sorry. Nice that you and Carlos are still online. I've got this chill in May. I don't know. Just sometimes it could be like looking at starting all over again from a point, but I like it anyway because from the viewpoint you guys are coming up, from past ideas, something is coming around there. Uh, I like your point as regards to like country staff and this and that because I was in a situation where I was a country staff in an organization. Now I wasn't given, though not as a BA or like an agile technician or whatever, but in the role I was contracted and I wasn't really given much opportunity to do my stuff, knowing that my supervisor always see me as a competitor because even the QP that was in the manufacturing company, they always come and tell them this guy is more educated than me. He's just experienced. And that kind of word always makes them feel like my supervisor was just there, experience. But he always look at me as a competitor. Most times when I needed some kind of like an information, I wasn't able to get it. I have to go back home, do my own research online. I was talking about 4 or 5 years ago, and it was like a challenge. And towards the end of my contract, then I remember my supervisor telling me that, Emmanuel, there's another pharmaceutical company around our place over there. They were looking for a position, and then I'm just not ready to apply for any permanent position. And then looking from the way his attitude has been from my first day in the company, I knew something was really going on. He was like a little bit cheeky, but me, just do our thing. We don't send anyone. But from the question asked and from your guys' point of view, from the suggestion, it could be very challenging from someone that just got like a role in a company. You still need some people to put you through around, and some stakeholders like we know, they are just, it's the money involved they are all about. Sometimes taking suggestions from you newbies, you're like, why is it coming from? You know what I mean? It's money speaking. So from that aspect, could there be another viewpoint to attract these people to your ideas because they employ you to come and bring changes, right? If they don't give you the channel to express to work very well, I don't think there's gonna be any way. Even if Ronaldo has a whole team to play, If he doesn't, he can't play all the football by himself. He can't play midfield. You get what I mean? I think I'm coming from different perspective to try to explain myself very well. You're just gonna be like a dummy. You can't keep reading
Okay,
everything.
Emmanuel.
Yeah.
The contract mindset wouldn't change.
All right.
It's you, the contractor, who has to have a thick skin and be able to go in there and give your support. It's like bringing in company. You are more like a company like PwC, EY, Deloitte, but you are going in here now alone. With guys from PwC, EY, they are told that, look, going in there, you don't expect to be liked. You have to add value. So as a contractor, daily, your focus is add value, add value, add value. And if you can add value, they'll keep you there for long. But the mindset around contractors is not going to change. One, they see how much they pay you, and you get paid more of close to a very senior manager's rate. So just to let you know, develop a thick skin and don't worry about all the fluff around, build relationships and put your head down. That's what I always tell contractors. Cyril, anything to add?
Yeah. I joined halfway through Manuel's summary, but I get a gist of what you're talking about. You're talking about the the sensitive relationships between permanent and contractor staff, right?
Yeah.
As William is stating, I've worked as a consultant, as a contractor most of my career, with the past 20 plus years, and it's always there. I soon realized soon after I started that I needed to do what William was explaining there, which is to develop the thick skin, and just focus on bringing your best self, and bringing value into the organization. And the smart leaders would recognize what you're doing when you focus on just delivering value. So don't be distracted by the naysayers and the time wasters. Don't even engage in dialogue with them. As just focus on delivering value, and the smart leaders would recognize that in you. And in fact, you never know what opportunities could come out of that after that experience. So being a contractor is not easy. But you grow a lot quicker. You grow a lot quicker than your permanent colleagues, for sure.